Hi everyone and Happy New Year. I just pulled the Christmas lights down, so I thought it'd be high time to share with you my top 10 books of 2015. I'll talk about them in random order except one, my absolute favorite, which made me cry on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m. one early August morning. So yeah, you've got that to look forward to this video. Before we get started, I'd like to take you through some numbers on the books that I read in 2015. Last year I read 41 books, which is quite a lot for me. Mostly I read 20-25 books, so that's almost double. I'm quite proud of that, if I have to be honest. Out of those 41 books, I read 20 books by male authors and 21 books by female authors, which is quite a nice balance. When it comes to ratings, I gave 3 books 5 stars and 11 books 4 stars, which makes that a few of them didn't make the cut for my top 10. Those who didn't make it are Did You Ever Have a Family by Bill Clegg, Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. Those were all amazing books, but just didn't make the cut this year. The first book that I'd like to talk about is Jovan His Room by James Baldwin. This was published quite a few years ago as part of Penguin's Books Great Love series. And I guess that's the exact way to describe it, because even if this is about a gay romance, it's mostly about love and how it feels to love somebody, but just it not being the right time and not the right place to do this. This takes place in 1950s Paris. And it's about an American called David who moves to Paris and meets Giovanni there, who works in a gay bar. And at the same time, David has a girlfriend and she returns to Paris somewhere in the book. And it causes David to ignore Giovanni, which in turn sends Giovanni's life into a tailspin and utter tragedy. This was quite a sad book, and I read this one quite early last year and it has stuck with me ever since. Another one of my favorites of last year also deals with a gay character, and that is More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. This book is about Aaron, and he slowly realizes that he is homosexual and in love with his best friend. But Aaron's life isn't the easiest. His father killed himself and he lives in quite a shabby place with his mother and his siblings. So it would be easier for him just not to be gay, and luckily in his world there is something called the Litio Institute, and they have the ability to alter your mind or your memories and just change your whole being, and he wants to go through this procedure just to stop him being gay. And I think that's a question that maybe a lot of gay people have also struggled with. If they could change being gay, would they do it? This book spoke to me for that reason, but also it's about unrequited love and how it feels to be different when growing up, and that's really a struggle. So yeah, definitely a book that I'll keep remembering. The next book I read because it was turned into a film with Julianne Moore last year, for which she won an Oscar, and that is Still Alice by Lisa Genova. This is about Alice, who is a Harvard professor but slowly realizes that she's losing her mind, that she has Alzheimer's, and it's about how somebody so brilliant, a Harvard professor, has to deal with the gift that has made her who she is, her brain, is slowly deteriorating, and how it affects her, but not only her, but also her husband, who is also a Harvard professor, and her children, who might have the same disease later on, because she's only 50, so this is early Alzheimer's. And we read about how in the beginning she starts to forget things and appointments, and is no longer capable of teaching and remembering appointments and commitments. And then it changes into her not being able to take care of herself, and one of her daughters has to step in and, be the mother for her. And this was really gripping, I felt, and it was written down so real that you could easily imagine yourself going through the same thing, even though we're not all Harvard professors, well, far off, but yeah, it was a very gripping read. My next book is in a genre that I don't really read that often, and that is Slade House by David Mitchell. I decided to pick this one up because it's a companion book to The Bone Clocks by him, which was one of my favorite books in 2015. The main character in this book, I guess, is Slade House, because there's a set of twins in there who are immortal but have to lure a soul into their house every 9 years, I think. And they have to feed off him, and if that wouldn't happen, they would die. A sort of short story collection, because there's 5 short stories, each centering on a different person through time. And it is about how they get lured into that house, and I read this around Halloween when it was published, and it was quite a creepy read, I think, and I think you could read this without reading the Bone Clocks, because I have two friends now who have also read this without reading the Bone Clocks, and they really enjoyed it. But I guess if you should read this, just go ahead and read the Bone Clocks also. You know, they're both really amazing books, yeah. So, David Mitchell, what an author. The next book is one that I read with my book club. It is Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I would classify this as an important book. I didn't really think that the plot was anything extraordinary. It's about two Nigerian migrants who the girl moves to America and the boy moves to London, but they both have a very different experience about immigration. What really struck me about this book is it is written, and it's about how African American people in the United States feel, and how from their vantage point, and that is something that I haven't read that much. I think it's very important to read diversely. I learned so much from this book, not only how Obama's election in 2008 was so different culturally and symbolically for African American people, but also about hair, about how it is to be perceived in the American culture and the British culture. I'm not gonna say that this taught me everything, but it's taught me quite a few things which I'm grateful for, so yeah. An important book, as I said. Another favorite book of mine that I read with my book club was Flute by Roderick Six, which is a Dutch book by a Flemish author. You can translate it by flood, and that's what this is about, really. It's about a university town somewhere, because it's not really specified. And it's about four friends who live in a dorm in that town, and suddenly there's a huge flood, and they're the only four left that they know of. And it's about how their friendship evolves into something much more. They have sex, they bully each other, they come close to murdering each other. But what intrigues me most about this book is what happens behind closed doors, because one of the friends ventures out into the city. It's not entirely flooded yet. He just breaks into people's houses and discovers their hobbies, their secrets. He even discovers a gruesome murder, and yeah, that intrigues me most, because I guess that's human nature to want to know what your neighbors are doing and what your friends are doing when you're not watching. So yeah, I guess it's a bit of a guilty pleasure book. Another dystopian book that I really enjoyed last year was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is about how a flu kills 99% of the world population, and we follow how the surviving people are coping 20 years after the flu has happened. What I enjoyed most about this book is how the author inserts Shakespeare into a dystopian novel, because one of the main characters is in a traveling Shakespeare band. They travel from settlement to settlement, not all of them being very welcoming, but she and her bandmates just try to bring some beauty and culture back into the world, because yeah, electricity is down, nobody's traveling anymore, and it's all about survival, so they just try to bring some beauty back into the world, and I really enjoyed this. A very good dystopian novel. Then my third to last book is one that I bought during my summer holidays in Amsterdam, and that is A Spool of Blue Thread by Anne Tyler. A week after that I bought it, I saw that it was longlisted and then shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize. I'm a big fan of family sagas, and this was one hell of a family saga. It reminded me a bit of Jonathan Franzen, but the family members were far more likable than compared to Franzen's characters. It's about three generations who live in Baltimore, but the twist is that you don't see them going from grandparents to grandchildren, but first it's the parents, then it's the children, and then it's the grandparents. And there's also a house that is very important to them, in which they all live. I really enjoyed this one because it reminded me of how mundane a family can be, but every family thinks that their family is the most interesting and the most special to all of them, which is natural, and it's the way you should view your family. So, and Tyler does a really good job of showing how everyone's family is the most important to them, but every family is also flawed and they have to cope with that. So Tyler did a really good job with that. Then my second to last book is also a Flemish one, and it takes place in the area that I live. It's about how a set of twins is born around the 1900s, but one twin is extremely beautiful and the other one is so deformed that the father decides not to give it a name. And it's about how the mother, the father, and those two twins grow up during the early half of the 20th century. And the First World War plays an enormous great part in it because they grow up on Flanders fields. And it's about how the father comes to his own views of an ideal society and how the ugly twin has to cope with being so deformed, and how the beautiful twin has to live with the guilt for always having been preferred over the deformed twin, and how the mother only wished the best for her both boys. It was a very beautiful, touching book. It was the best Flemish book that I read in 2015. And then finally, my favorite book of 2015, a book that I also bought in Amsterdam that I read in less than a week, a book that I finished while sitting on the bathroom floor, sobbing, being a total mess, and that was A Little Life by Hani Yanagihara. I have recommended this book to so many people, talked about it to so many people, just, I don't know, it's something that has never left my thoughts since I read it, and that has been like 6 months ago. The other day I was trying to listen to the Slade audio book club on this book, and I just had to put it off after, I don't know, 10 minutes because I just couldn't bear it anymore. This is a book about how 4 friends grew up in New York, but it's mostly about one of those friends, Jude. It's about his tragic childhood, how he has been abused mentally, sexually, physically, how a trauma like that can just go on even if it isn't physically happening. And it's about how friendship can help you through that, but it is about how friendship can help you through that, but is also a distraction. And it's about how friendship can turn into love. This is also like a couple of books that I have previously mentioned about how friendship can turn into love or not. This book was so emotionally taxing that I just had to put it away several times, as I just couldn't bear reading it anymore. But some people say that it's unrealistic that one person can go through so much like Jude did in this book. But while I read it, I didn't think that, oh no, this just can't happen. I just felt for Jude, and I lived through it with him. And I guess that's the most important thing. Just if you read this book, just open your mind and let it come to you, and don't sit there thinking, oh no, this isn't possible. Just, I don't know, when I closed this book, I felt like I went through a journey with him that I won't be able to do in any other book. So that's why this is my favorite book of 2015, and I think my favorite book ever. So my books fell. So I would like to thank you for watching. If you have any comments on my books or any recommendations for 2015, please don't hesitate to share them. I would love to talk to you about books in the comments. So yeah, thank you for watching, and have a nice 2016, and see you soon. Bye!